John was a simple blacksmith who lived in a quiet village. His shop, filled with the scent of hot metal and the sound of his hammer striking the anvil, was the heart of the small town. People came from miles around to buy his work, whether it was a strong horseshoe or a delicate sword. His creations were known for their strength, but John always believed that there was more to a weapon than just metal. He believed that the heart of the blacksmith was in every blade he forged. One evening, as John was finishing his work, the door to his shop opened with a creak. Standing in the doorway was a figure taller than any man John had ever seen. This was not just a man, this was an alien. The creature had blue skin, eyes that glowed like stars, and wore heavy armor that seemed to shimmer with energy. John stepped back, his hammer still in hand. He had heard stories of alien visitors, but he never thought he would see one with his own eyes. "I need your help," the alien spoke in a deep voice that seemed to rumble like thunder. John stared at him, unsure if he should be afraid or amazed. "What do you want from me?" he asked cautiously. "I need a blade," the alien replied. "Not just any blade. A blade that can cut through anything, even the toughest of materials in the galaxy." John raised an eyebrow. A blade that could cut through anything. He had crafted many fine swords in his time, but nothing that could do that. Still, there was something about the alien's presence that told John he could not refuse. "Who are you?" John asked, trying to understand why the creature had come to him. "I am Kaler," the alien said. "I am a warrior from the planet Vexer. My people have been at war for centuries, and we need a weapon like no other to end this fight." John nodded slowly. A warrior's blade. He could see why the alien needed something special. "Why come to me? There are many blacksmiths, even in space. Why me, here in this little town?" Kaler looked at him with his glowing eyes. "Because your skill is known across the stars. You are said to have forged blades with a strength beyond any other. I've heard of your work, and I believe you are the only one who can forge the blade I need." John felt a rush of pride. Always believed his craft was something special, but hearing this from an alien warrior made him feel like he had been given a great honor. But then doubt crept in. "How am I supposed to forge such a blade?" John asked. "I've worked with iron, steel, and gold, but nothing like this." "And what could be strong enough to make a blade that powerful?" Kaler stepped forward, placing a small, glowing crystal on the counter. "This is what you will need. It is a metal unlike any you have ever seen. It was mined from a dying star. No weapon has ever been forged from it before. But it has the power you seek." John studied the crystal. It was unlike any metal he had ever touched. It shimmered in the light, almost alive with energy. He ran his fingers over it, feeling a strange warmth. It felt powerful, like the very core of a star. "Where did you get this?" John asked. Still in disbelief, Kaler's face hardened. "It was not easy. Many of my people died retrieving it. But this blade must be forged, or our enemies will continue to destroy us." John looked at the alien, his mind racing. He knew this was no ordinary request. This was a chance to create something legendary. But the task would be difficult, perhaps even impossible. Yet, as he looked into Kaler's eyes, he could see the warrior's desperation. This was a mission that could change the fate of an entire people. "I'll need time," John said finally. "This is not something I can do quickly. I'll need the right tools, and I'll need help. Forging a blade like this will take everything I have." Kaler nodded. "I will give you the time you need. But know this, once this blade is forged, I will owe you a debt that will last forever. No matter what the cost, I will repay you." John hesitated. He didn't know what kind of debt the alien meant, but there was something in Kaler's words that made him believe the promise was real. "All right, I will do it. I'll forge your blade." Kaler's face softened. "Thank you. You will not regret this, human." With that, the alien warrior turned and left the shop, leaving John alone with the glowing crystal. John stared at it for a long moment, feeling the weight of what he had just agreed to. This was no ordinary blade. It was a weapon that could change the galaxy. And he, John the blacksmith, was the one who would forge it. As he began to prepare his forge for the task, Ahead, John felt a mix of excitement and fear. He had never worked with such powerful material before, and the pressure of forging a weapon like no other weighed heavily on him. But there was also something thrilling about it. He was going to create a blade that could end a war, a blade that could change the fate of worlds. John didn't know how long it would take or what dangers lay ahead. But he knew one thing. This was a challenge unlike any he had ever faced, and he would not back down. The days that followed were filled with hard work and preparation. John knew that crafting a blade of such power was no simple task. He had never worked with metal like the crystal Kaler had given him. It shimmered with a strange, almost magical glow, and he could feel its heat even through the thick gloves he wore. He set up his forge with the most precise care. The forge's fire burned hotter than he had ever made it before. John understood that the metal had to be heated to an intense temperature, but he also knew that one mistake could destroy the crystal. It was unlike anything he had worked with. If he pushed it too far, the crystal might melt into nothing. Kaler had given him only one piece. There was no room for error. John spent hours just staring at the glowing crystal, thinking about the weight of the task ahead. How could he possibly make a blade that could cut through anything? He had made strong swords, sharp knives, and armor, but nothing like this. The first step was to melt the crystal. He carefully placed it in the forge, adjusting the flames to the right temperature. As the fire heated the metal, it began to change color, glowing brighter, like a star coming to life. John felt his heart race as he kept an eye on it. If the temperature was too high, it would burn. If it was too low, it wouldn't form properly. As the crystal began to melt, John could see the incredible strength it possessed. It was dense and rich in energy, almost like the very core of a planet. The metal began to flow, but it was slow. Like it was taking its time to trust John, he carefully added the right amounts of heat and pressure, working the metal with skill and patience. He could feel the magic of the metal, the energy within it, as he shaped it. Kaler had told him that the blade would need to be sharp enough to cut through anything steel, stone, even the toughest alien armor. John thought about the warriors, words, and the promise Kaler had made him. His debt would last forever. John didn't know exactly what that meant, but he felt it was important. The warrior had been through so much, and John knew he had to succeed. The blade had to be perfect. Days turned into nights as John worked, his hands covered in soot and sweat, his body tired but determined. His mind raced with questions. What would Kaler use the blade for? Would it be used in battle? Was it truly impossible for anyone else to create? John had to push all doubts out of his mind. This was his chance to create something great, something that would echo through the universe forever. One morning, as he worked at his anvil, he heard the familiar sound of Kaler's heavy footsteps approaching his shop. The alien warrior stepped into the doorway, looking as strong and powerful as ever, his armor reflecting the sunlight. "How's it going?" Kaler asked, his voice low and steady. John wiped the sweat from his forehead and turned to face him. "Coming along slowly. I'm not used to working with this material. It's unlike anything I've ever touched before." Kaler nodded, understanding. "It's the metal from a dying star," he explained. "It's not just any metal. It has the power to cut through anything, but it also requires patience. It takes time for the metal to bond with the blacksmith's skill. It will only work if you believe in it." John looked at the glowing piece of metal on his workbench. He could feel the warmth radiating from it, like a living thing. "I understand, but I'm not sure I'm the right person for this task." Kaler stepped forward and placed a hand on John's shoulder. "You are more than capable. You're the one chosen to forge this blade. I wouldn't have come to you if I didn't believe in your skill. Your heart is in your work. That is why this blade will be more than just a weapon. It will be a symbol of something greater." John's doubts began to fade. He had always believed that a weapon was only as strong as the heart of the person who forged it. Maybe Kaler was right. This blade wasn't just about cutting through steel or stone. It was about creating something that would carry a piece of his spirit, a piece of Earth itself, into the farthest reaches of the galaxy. "Thanks," John said quietly. "I'll finish it. I promise." Kaler smiled, his eyes glowing with gratitude. "I trust you. When the blade is ready, We will change the fate of my people. 8. The alien warrior turned and left, leaving John to his work. With renewed purpose, John went back to the forge. He carefully heated the crystal once again, hammering it gently into shape. The metal glowed brightly as he worked, becoming more solid with each strike of his hammer. Slowly, the blade began to take form. It was long and slender, but its edges were sharp, sharper than anything John had ever made. As the blade took shape, John marveled at its beauty. There was something otherworldly about it, as though it was alive, waiting for its purpose. The more John worked, the more he felt a strange connection to the blade. It was as if the metal was communicating with him, sharing its ancient power and the weight of the task it was created for. John could sense that this blade was not just a weapon, it was a key. A key to something larger than either him or Kaler could fully understand by the time the blade was finished. John was exhausted but satisfied. He stepped back and looked at it, his heart swelling with pride. It was perfect. It was exactly what Kaler had asked for. It shimmered in the light, almost as though it was glowing from within. He placed the blade on a cloth, its gleaming surface reflecting the dim light of the forge. John knew that once Kaler saw this blade, everything would change. The warrior's debt would be paid, and the galaxy would never be the same. As John cleaned up his tools, he felt a sense of finality. The blade was ready. All he had to do was wait for Kaler to return and claim what was his. John sat in his small workshop staring at the blade. It was done, and he couldn't believe how perfect it looked. The metal shimmered in the dim light of the forge as though it held within it the power of the stars. The blade's edge was sharper than anything he had ever seen, and it felt as if it had a life of its own. The work was finished, and now, all that remained was for Kaler to return and claim it. But as the days passed, John began to wonder about the warrior's past. Kaler had been vague about his mission, only mentioning that his people were at war with a ruthless empire. The warrior had promised that this blade would be the key to ending that war, but John felt there was more to the story. Kaler had been so grateful for John's help, yet there was something in his eyes that hinted at deep pain. John needed to understand more. It's not only about the blade, but also about the warrior who had asked for it. One afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Kaler returned. His footsteps echoed as he entered the shop, his heavy armor making a loud clanking sound. John looked up from the blade he had been polishing, and for a moment their eyes met. "Is it done?" Kaler asked, his voice filled with hope. John nodded. "It's ready. Take a look." Kaler walked over to the workbench and gazed at the blade. His eyes widened, and a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "You've done it," he said softly. "This blade, it will change everything." John hesitated for a moment, watching the alien warrior closely. "I've made it as you asked, but I still don't understand the full reason behind it. Told me you needed it to defeat your enemies. But who are they? Why is this blade so important?" Kaler sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. He reached out and gently lifted the blade, his hands trembling slightly. "I've kept much of my past hidden, John, but now I see that you have earned the truth." John sat quietly, waiting for Kaler to continue. He could tell this was difficult for the warrior, but he felt that he needed to understand. After all, this blade was not just a weapon, it was tied to something far greater than anything John could have imagined. "I come from a planet called Vexer," Kaler began, his voice quieter now. "My people were once a proud and peaceful race skilled in arts and science, but our peace was shattered by an empire that cared nothing for life and took what they wanted without mercy." John listened closely, his curiosity growing. Kaler's tone was heavy with sorrow. He could feel the weight of the warrior's words. "The empire came without warning," Kaler continued, his eyes far away, as if seeing the past in his mind. "They destroyed my world. My family, my friends, everyone I knew was wiped out. The survivors, including myself, had no choice but to fight. We took up arms and waged war, but the empire was too strong. Over the years, I lost many comrades. I've fought for so long, I don't even know if I remember what peace feels like." John stood up, his heart aching for the warrior. He had never known loss like that. His own life had been simple, quiet. He had never faced an enemy that destroyed everything he loved. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I had no idea." Kaler looked at him with sadness in his eyes. "You could not have known. But now you do. I've been fighting for so long. John, I've seen so much destruction. That's why I need this blade, not just as a weapon, but as a symbol of hope for my people. This blade will be the end of the Empire. It is the last chance we have." John took a deep breath. The weight of what Kaler was saying settled heavily on his shoulders. This was no ordinary request. The blade he had forged was not just for battle. It was the key to something much larger, a chance for an entire people to reclaim their freedom. "But why me?" John asked. "Why did you choose me to forge it?" Kaler paused, looking at the blade in his hands. "Because of what?" "You are, John. You are human. Your people have faced struggles too, but you continue to fight. You don't give up. And you are not bound by the chains of history. You have the strength to create something new. That's what this blade is. It is not just a weapon. It is a new beginning." John was silent for a long time, thinking about the warrior's words. He had never thought of himself in such grand terms. He'd always just been a blacksmith, hammering metal into tools and weapons. But now he realized that the blade he had made had a purpose far beyond anything he had ever imagined. John said finally, "This is bigger than any blade I've ever made. I understand now." Kaler nodded. "It will not be easy. The Empire will fight back and they will do anything to stop us. But with this blade, we will have the strength to push forward. I will return to my people, and we will stand together, united. We will end the war." John felt a surge of pride for the blade he had forged. He had never thought of it as more than just a job, something he had to finish. But now, he understood that it was much more. It was the key to a new future. "You have made something special, John," Kaler said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I will never forget what you've done. The debt I owe you will last forever, no matter what happens." John looked at the warrior, his heart full of a strange new feeling. He had done something important, something that would change the galaxy. And even though Kaler had promised to repay him, John didn't need anything in return. Seeing the warrior's hope, his dedication to his people was enough. "Go," John said softly. "Take the blade and bring peace to your people." Kaler smiled. "I will, and I will make sure your name is remembered in the stars." With that, the warrior turned and walked out of the shop, carrying the impossible blade. John stood there, watching him leave, feeling the weight of the moment settle into his heart. The war was far from over, but for the first time, there was hope. The days after Kaler left felt strangely empty for John. The small town where he lived seemed quieter, as though something important had gone away. Though he was proud of what he had created, a sense of worry gnawed at him. He had crafted the blade as promised, but now he had to wait. Would the warrior succeed in his mission? Would the Empire fall? Days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Kaler. John kept working at his forge as he always had, but it wasn't the same. His thoughts often drifted back to the warrior, the powerful alien who had come to him for help. He had only seen a glimpse of Kaler's world, the pain in his eyes, the weight of his people's suffering. But now, John realized just how much was riding on the blade he had forged. One morning, as John worked at his anvil, he heard a loud sound outside. It was the heavy thud of boots hitting the dirt road. He turned to see Kaler standing in the doorway, his armor battered and his expression grave. The alien warrior was alone. Kaler's eyes met John's, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The room seemed to hold its breath. "I didn't think I'd see you again," John said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "What happened?" Kaler stepped inside, his shoulders heavy with the weight of his journey. "The blade worked," he said quietly. "We defeated the Empire's forces, but not without cost." John felt a pang of fear. "What happened? Are you hurt?" Kaler nodded, but there was no sign of injury. Instead, there was something darker in his eyes. "We won the battle." The blade cut through their shields, their armor, their weapons. It was everything we hoped for. But after the battle, we learned that there are greater threats in the galaxy. Our enemies were only a small part of something much larger. Now I have even more to repay you for." John frowned. "What do you mean?" "Thought the Empire was the threat." Kaler looked at the floor for a moment before meeting John's gaze again. "The Empire was just one part of a much bigger force. The galaxy is filled with warlords, empires, and forces that destroy everything in their path. But there is a new group rising. They're even more dangerous than the Empire. They want what we've taken, the blade, the power that comes with it." John felt his heart race. "So the blade wasn't just about defeating the Empire? There's more to it?" "Much more," Kayla replied. "The blade is not only a weapon, it's a symbol of strength and defiance. Whoever controls, it can lead armies, topple empires. The power inside it is what everyone will want." John felt a heavy weight in his chest. He had forged the blade, not knowing the full extent of what it would mean. He had made it to help Kaler and his people. But now he realized that it had become something much bigger than that. "Something dangerous? What are you going to do?" John asked, his voice low. Kaler's expression softened. "I must return to my people. We need to prepare for the coming storm. The blade will be our weapon, but it will also be our responsibility." "I can't do this alone, John." John nodded slowly. He had already known that this would be a test for Kaler, but he hadn't known it would be this great. The blade had to be more than just a tool of war. It had to be a symbol of hope, of unity. It was the key to something much larger, and now it seemed like the galaxy would be fighting over it. "I'll help you, John," said his voice steady. "Whatever comes next, I'll stand by you. You've kept your promise to me, and I will keep mine to you. You won't be alone." Kaler looked at him, his eyes shining with gratitude. "You don't have to do this, John, but I'm glad you're with me. I will never forget the debt I owe you. It will last forever, no matter what happens." John smiled, though there was sadness in his eyes. "I didn't make the blade for the debt. I made it because it was the right thing to do. And now, I see that I can't just walk away from it. I have a part to play in this." Kaler turned and walked over to the corner of the shop where he had left the blade. It lay on the table, gleaming and powerful. Kaler picked it up, holding it with both hands. The weight of it seemed to fill the room. "This blade will carry the future of my people," Kaler said, his voice strong. "I can feel its power, and I know that we have to protect it, no matter the cost." John stood up and walked over to Kaler. For a moment, the two stood side by side, looking at the blade. John could feel the tension in the air. This was more than just about one warrior or one battle. This was about the fate of entire worlds. "I know what you mean," John said softly, "and I'll do everything I can to help. There's one thing I don't understand. You said the blade was everything. But what happens if you can't protect it?" Kaler's gaze darkened. "Then we fight. We fight to the last. This blade is more than a weapon. It's the symbol of everything we stand for. If we lose it, we lose everything." John nodded, understanding now that the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. The blade was more than just metal. It was the hope of a people. It was the answer to a war that had raged for far too long. As Kaler turned to leave, he paused at the door. "I won't forget this, John. The debt I owe you is more than just for the blade. It's for the future. It's for the galaxy." John stood in the doorway, watching the warrior leave. The small forge that had once felt like home now seemed more important than ever. It forged the impossible blade. But now, he understood that the true test had only just begun. The days after Kaler's departure were filled with uncertainty. John kept working at his forge, the rhythmic sound of his hammer against metal, the only thing that kept his mind focused. He thought about the warrior and his people, and about the blade that had been forged in his shop. It had already changed so much, not just in the galaxy, but in John's life. He had made something that could alter the course of a war. And yet, as time passed, he began to wonder if he had made a mistake. Was the blade really the solution? Or was it a weapon that would bring even more destruction? Kaler had promised to return, and John held on to that promise. Couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and he had forged a weapon of unimaginable power. One day as John worked, he heard the familiar sound of boots outside his shop. He looked up, startled, and saw Kaler standing at the door. This time, the warrior was not alone. A small group of alien soldiers stood behind him, their armor gleaming in the sunlight. John's heart skipped a beat. What happened? His voice tight with concern. Kaler stepped into the shop, his face grim. We've won the battle, John, but the war is far from over. John's mind raced. I thought you said the blade was the answer. What went wrong? Kaler's eyes darkened, and he set the blade down on John's workbench. It wasn't the blade. The blade did exactly what it was supposed to do. Cut through their defenses, shattered their weapons. But our enemies weren't as easily defeated as we thought. There are forces out there that want to take the blade for themselves. The blade's power is far greater than we anticipated. John felt a chill run down his spine. He had known the blade was important, but now he understood that its power had made it a target. So, the Empire isn't the end of it? No, Kaler replied. It's just the beginning. There are others, warlords, mercenaries even. Entire factions who want to control the blade. Whoever holds it controls the future of the galaxy. We can't let that happen. John took a step back, his mind racing. So what now? How do we protect it? Kaler glanced at the soldiers. Behind him, we need to move quickly. We must rally our people, gather those who still believe in freedom. The blade is a symbol of hope, and we cannot let it fall into the wrong hands. But there is something else, John, something I haven't told you. John frowned, looking at Kaler. What is it? Kaler hesitated before speaking. The blade. It's bound to me. It's not just a weapon. It's part of my soul now, and if anyone else tries to wield it, they'll never control its full power. They will be destroyed by it. John felt a mix of awe and fear. He had never imagined that. The blade could be so powerful, so dangerous. What do you mean, bound to you? The blade has a bond with its creator. It recognizes the one who forged it. It's a connection that cannot be broken. I didn't know this when I asked you to create it, but now I understand. The blade is mine and mine alone. John's thoughts swirled. He had created something that could destroy entire civilizations, and now he understood just how dangerous it was. But what did it mean for Kaler? Could he handle such power? We need to hide it, John said, his voice steady. We can't let anyone find it. Kaler nodded. I agree, but it's not just the blade we need to protect. It's the people who fight for freedom. We need to form alliances, gather those who will stand with us. John looked at Kaler, seeing the weight of the burden on his shoulders. The warrior had been through so much already, and now, with the blade he carried, the hopes of entire planets. I'll help you, John said, his voice firm. Whatever happens, I'll stand by you. But I can't do this alone. You won't be alone, Kaler replied. You never were. The warrior stepped forward and placed his hand on John's shoulder. It was a simple gesture, but it carried. A promise that the debt would last forever. John had forged the blade, but it was Kaler's duty to protect it. I won't forget this, John, Kaler said. What you've done, it means more than you can imagine. The debt I owe you will last forever, no matter what the cost. John nodded, feeling the weight of the promise. But he didn't care about the debt. He cared about the future. The future was uncertain. Kaler turned to his soldiers and nodded. We leave in the morning. We need to move quickly and get the blade to safety. John watched as Kaler and his soldiers left the shop, their footsteps echoing in the quiet streets. He had never thought of himself as a hero. He was just a blacksmith, a man who worked with his hands. But now he had forged something far greater than he had ever imagined. He had forged a weapon that would change the galaxy. And he had become a part of something much bigger than himself. As he watched Kaler and the others disappear into the distance, John felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had done what was right, and no matter what came next, he knew he had made a difference. The warrior's debt might last forever, but John had already given everything he had, and that was enough. The days following Kaler's departure felt different for John. His life had returned to a quiet rhythm, but his mind was never far from the warrior and the impossible blade he had forged. It seemed impossible that something as simple as a blacksmith's forge could have such an impact on the galaxy. The blade, the war. Kaler, these thoughts weighed heavily on John's heart, but he had made peace with his decision. The blade was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol, the promise Kaler had made to him that his debt would last forever. Kept John going. John continued to work in his forge, making tools and weapons for his town. But it was different now. Every piece of metal he hammered felt connected to something larger than himself. He often thought about Kaler's people, the alien warriors' struggle, and what might happen next. The galaxy, once so far away and distant, now felt close, almost as if it was knocking on his door. Weeks passed, and one quiet afternoon, John's peaceful routine was interrupted again. The sound of heavy boots outside his shop grew louder, and John looked up hoping it was Kaler. But this time the figure in the doorway was different. A tall man, dressed in dark armor and bearing the same mysterious glowing eyes as Kaler, stepped into the forge. His presence was almost as imposing as the warriors. There was something colder about him. John stood up from his anvil, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Can I help you?" The man stepped forward, his eyes scanning the room. "I've been looking for the one who forged the blade," he said in a low, steady voice. John frowned, suddenly aware that something wasn't right. "What blade?" "The blade you made for Kaler," the man said, his tone sharp. "It's been taken, and we need it." John's heart skipped a beat. He recognized the seriousness in the man's eyes. "What do you mean it's been taken? Who are you?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer to John, his presence intimidating. "I'm part of a group who seeks the blade," he said. "And you, John, will help us find it. You're the only one who can." John took a step back, feeling a chill run down his spine. "I don't know what you're talking about. I made the blade for Kaler. It was his to carry." The man's eyes hardened. "You misunderstand, Blacksmith. The blade has a power beyond what you can imagine. It cannot simply be carried away by someone like Kaler. You will find it with or without your help." John's mind raced, could feel the danger in the air. The blade, his creation, was now more than just a symbol. It was a key to something far greater, and there were others out there who would stop at nothing to control it. "I won't help you," John said, his voice more confident than he felt. "The blade belongs to Kaler, and no one else." The man's face twisted into something resembling a smile, but it was a cold, calculating expression. "You don't understand. This is no longer about loyalty to one warrior. This is about the future of the galaxy. The blade is a weapon that could reshape everything. Whoever controls it controls the fate of all." John's heart pounded in his chest. "What do you want with it?" The man stepped closer, his voice growing colder. "We want control. We want the power that comes with it. We're not leaving until we have it." John felt a surge of fear. He had always known that the blade was powerful, but he never imagined that it would cause such a dangerous stir. "I can't give it to you," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I don't even know where Kaler is."
Odd.
The man narrowed his eyes. "You may not know where he is, but you have the knowledge to find him, and that's all we need. You will help us, whether you want to or not." John stood his ground, but he could feel his pulse quickening. He had never faced such a threat. Before, the forge that had once felt like a place of safety now felt like a prison, surrounded by enemies. He had no idea what to do, but he knew he couldn't let the blade fall into the wrong hands. "I won't help you," John said, his voice firm now. "I made the blade for Kaler, and I trust him. If you want it, you'll have to go through him." The man's expression darkened, and for a moment John thought he might attack. But instead, the man simply turned away. "You're a fool, Blacksmith. But that's your choice. Just remember, if you change your mind, we'll be watching." With that, the man and his soldiers left the shop, leaving John alone with his thoughts. The encounter had shaken him, but it also sparked something deep within him. He had made the blade, and he had given it to Kaler. It was no longer just a weapon. It was a symbol of everything he stood for. The galaxy might be in chaos, but John knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let anyone take that symbol away. As the days passed, John couldn't stop thinking about the man's words. He had created something that others now sought to control, and he had no idea how to stop it. But one thing was clear: he couldn't sit idly by. The blade was not just Kaler's, it was a part of the future of the galaxy. And no matter what, John would do everything in his power to protect it. The warrior's debt had always seemed like an abstract promise, something distant and hard to comprehend. But now, standing in the quiet of his forge, John realized that it wasn't just a debt, it was a bond. It's a bond that tied him to Kaler and to the future of the galaxy itself. No matter what it took, he would see it through. As he picked up his hammer and began to work again, John knew that the story of the impossible blade was far from over. It was only just beginning.